This chapter is 5E on substitution. In this chapter, you'll learn how to substitute numerical values into formulae or formulas. So we're going to work through a few examples. In this example, it reads, the amount of sleep that a child needs is H hours. The H stands for a mysterious number that we don't know right now. So in the meantime, we're going to call it H. And depends on its age, A years. So again, A, it represents a number, we just don't know what it is right now. It is represented in the formula H equals 16 minus 1/2 A. So right now, for the time being, we don't really need to know why the formula is what it is, because the purpose of this chapter is to learn how to substitute these variables, these letters, with numbers, with values. And what we need to know is basically what the formula is and how we're going to substitute the values in. So, for example, in A, we want to find out the amount of sleep recommended for David, who is age 6. Now, as we saw up here, age is represented by the letter A. So in this case, the little a is equal to 6. Now we want to find out the amount of sleep recommended, which basically is talking about the number of hours, and so we're actually trying to find out H. So by substituting A into the formula, we find out the answer, which is H. So it would look something like this. H equals 16 minus 1/2. And since 1/2 is next to the A, it means to multiply, times 6. Now, in previous chapters, we've worked on multiplying fractions, and so we know that 1/2 times 6 is the same thing as saying 1/2 times 6 over 1. So that means this makes 6 over 2, because we multiply straight across, and 6 over 2 simplifies down into a 3. So when I rewrite this expression, H equals 16 minus 3, then now we can solve it. 16 minus 3 is 13, and H equals 13. So therefore, David, who's 6 years old, needs 13 hours of sleep. That's a lot of sleep. At this time, pause the video and complete B and C. So as we figured out before, we knew that David, who's age 6, A equals 6, he needs 13 hours of sleep. Now, find out the amount of sleep recommended for Jessica, who is age 12. So in this case, we know that A equals 12. We don't know what H is. We're going to go figure it out. So using the formula above, H equals 16 minus 1/2 times 12. That should give you 16 minus, and if I do this to the side, 1/2 times 12 over 1 is 12 over 2, which makes a big 6, minus 6. Then H has to equal 10. So for someone who's age 12, they have to have 10 hours of sleep. Now, find out the amount of sleep recommended for you. So depending on your age, you'd have to put that number in. So let's pretend that you are 11 years old. So pretending that maybe you're 11, you could be 13, you could be 14. Let's play with 11. If you're 11, then basically we would go 16 minus 1/2 times 11. And to do this one to the side, 1/2 times 11 over 1, that's 11 over 2. So if you simplify this, this becomes 5.5 or 5.5. And then, so that becomes 16 minus 5.5. And that will give you 10.5. So if you're 11, you need 10.5 hours of sleep. Let's try one more. So in this problem, the cost, C, pence, so C is going to represent the cost in terms of pence, of using Kieran's radio depends on how long he uses it with batteries, X hours, so X represents hours, and how long he uses it with electricity, means electricity, Y hours. Yes. So in this case, we're having a few little errors here with the typing. We know that C represents the total cost and it's in pence. We know that X represents the hours in terms of battery life, and Y represents the hours in terms of electricity. So again, we don't really need to understand right now at this time why the formula is what it is, but here is the formula. Now, at this time, given that you know these facts, find C, the cost, when you substitute in the values of X and Y into the following formula. So at this time, pause. Okay, so we know we can find the cost. And here's the formula, 3. And we know X is 2, so times 2, plus Y, which happens to be 8. So let's figure this out. And according to rules of operation, order of operations, or PEMDAS, or BIDMAS, depending on how you see it, you have to complete everything inside the brackets first. So 3 times 2 is 6. 6. And then you have to add the 8. So there you go. That's what's inside the brackets right now. And then that will make 14 on the inside when you add it together. And then finally, the cost will be 2 times 14, which makes 28 pence. Now, in the other situation where X equals 10 and Y equals 0, so set it up, C equals 2 times 3 times 10 plus 0. So we actually don't need to really write the 0 because it's going to disappear anyway. Then we rewrite it. C equals 2 times 3 times 10 is 30. Therefore, the cost is equal to 60 pence. That's all.